Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ray. I'm a detransition male, and today I'm going to be talking about the concept of safety within the trans community. If you go to trans forums, like in Reddit, you'll often hear people talking about or asking questions about which states in the United States are safe and which are not safe. So it'll be like, oh, I'm looking to move. Like, what's the safest state in the United States? Or I'm looking to move to a new city. Is that city safe for trans people? Or I'm looking to get a haircut. Is that salon safe? Is that salon safe for trans people? So this concept of safety is very important in these sort of practical discussions. And you would think that when you're talking about safety, you would be talking about actual probability of physical harm through actual violence or something like this. But no, that is not how safety is often discussed in the trans community. And I'm going to illustrate that with this Reddit thread that I found. So this person posts New Hampshire, USA passed House Bill 1205 and it went completely under the radar. Too long, didn't read. New Hampshire is becoming increasingly unsafe for trans people, especially minors. People always assume that New Hampshire is a safe haven for everyone because we are part of New England. New England is seen as one of the most progressive parts of the country, so the assumption that New Hampshire is safe is completely valid. However, don't judge a book by its cover. On the 19th of July 2024, Governor Chris Sununu signed a bill that trans femme people, aka boys that identify as girls, in grades 5 through 12, cannot participate in women's sports. I found out about this in a newspaper, New Scene Zero coverage. So much for our motto being live free or die. Okay. So, on its face, that is patently absurd. The idea that because children in through grades 5 through 12 who are male and therefore have gone through male puberty can't play on the female sports team because they have a biological advantage over that category. And it wouldn't be fair, objectively speaking, on a purely objective level. And you can look at the studies on this. I've done so many videos on my channel looking at the sports issue and the question of biological advantage and, whether puberty confers advantage and whether hormones negate that advantage, blah, blah, blah. It's just, but, the question of whether a male can play in a female sports team, if the desiderata for that decision making is based on a criteria of fairness and objectivity, then clearly that's not motivated necessarily by hatred or discrimination or a desire to make trans people unsafe. Because let's say you are one of these little boys who identifies as a girl, you're in grade 5. Are you unsafe because you can't play on the female sports team? No, that's ridiculous. You're not going to be your physical safety is not going to be impacted merely by the fact you can't play on the female sports team. That's just like logically, there's no connection between safety and little boys not being able to play on the female sports team. And the posters said it themselves. They're like, well, New Hampshire is one of the most progressive areas in the whole country. It's in New England. We're so progressive. So it's like, in reality, it's probably very, very rare, very, very, very rare for a trans person to experience actual physical threats to their safety in New Hampshire. Particularly in urban, democratic, liberal, blue areas of the state. It's just so, but this perception that if there is legal pushback against the absurdities of gender identity ideology, politically speaking, therefore you are unsafe. You are unsafe because we are going to legislate that males can't compete against females. That just doesn't make sense. But you see this concept of safety being promulgated all throughout the trans community, even though it doesn't actually have anything to do with actual physical safety or actual probability of being physically harmed in some way. The safety is that their ideological identities are not being propped up. They don't feel safe because um, they don't have their identity affirmed in all political and social scenarios. Even though, you know, like you can still play on the boys' sports team. You can still play in a kind of a recreational basis at like a local club or whatever. So there's nothing about this that impacts your actual safety. But I thought this post was emblematic of how so many people within the trans community talk about safety, where the concerns about safety are not really about, am I going to get, beat up or whatever. It's more about, is my particular ideological conceptual framework for understanding my own subjective identity, is that going to be affirmed in the way that I want? And if not, I don't feel safe. But that's not actual safety. That's like a threat to like your ideology. It's a threat to your belief system. It's like saying, "Oh, I'm a Christian and I don't feel safe going into the atheist convention because the atheists aren't going to respect my religious beliefs or something." But and that's not what safety means. And we're teaching these trans people to not have resilience. So if you are scared to go to the barbershop because the barbershop, might not be the maximal trans ally who believes in gender identity ideology and all this stuff, even though there's a 0% probability that you're going to walk into the barbershop and the barber's going to beat you up because you're trans. Like, you know, this idea that like, oh, the only places that are safe for me are the places that fully buy into gender identity ideology. It's teaching safetyism. It's like teaching a lack of psychological resilience. It's putting yourself in an ideological echo chamber, a bubble, such that you don't expose yourself to reality. You don't expose yourself to the salt of the earth of regular people who are not going to beat you up. They might not affirm you in the way that you want, but you're not going to be unsafe. And so I just think these conversations, I see this all the time, like, you know, is like moving to this state safe, or what's like a yeah, like a salon that's safe, or like a bar that's safe or whatever. and and I'm not saying that there's never been any violence against the trans community, but if you actually look up the statistical probability of being violently assaulted relative to the population, um, there's not clear evidence that being trans alone increases your probability of being physically assaulted. Now, the trans activists want to say that, well, trans women get assaulted all the time. But we have to be clear about which cohort within the trans community is experiencing violence. It's often sex workers. Sex workers are the ones who are experiencing violence. And that's not intrinsic to being trans, that's intrinsic to the trade, that's intrinsic to that profession. So almost all of these statistics about how dangerous it is to be trans are distorted by that fact that the violence is experienced in the context of sex work, which is an inherently violent profession to be in. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say for this video. I just wanted to comment on this because I just thought it was like perfectly emblematic of how distorted the trans community is on this concept of safety and like what it means to be safe. And I just think that we are teaching trans people all the wrong lessons. We need to be focusing on building psychological resilience such that you don't feel crippling anxiety from going into an establishment that may not be 100% maximal LGBTQI plus super ally, pro trans ideology or whatever. You should be comfortable walking into an establishment, even if they don't have rainbow flags all over the establishment. So, okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.